Hello and welcome to haQ attaQ. My name is Jakob, I'm your host, and you're watching a haQ attaQ episode. This is KORG Gadget and we're continuing the 8-bit dubstep production trick series. So this is part 3, and in this one we're gonna have a look at the chord and the lead section of this track. Now if you've missed part 1 or part 2, then you can find a playlist down in the description, or you could click this card up here. Right, so part 3, and we're gonna start with the chord. The chord is being made by a KORG Gadget. Now I absolutely love this gadget, and mostly because of the pitch envelope being named jump and the arpeggiator being named run. Now I'm not using the jump function, but I am using the run function, and so we're gonna have a listen to this. And that's what I love about the run function. The arpeggiator makes it easy to get some chip tuning sounds out of it. So let's have a look at the insert effect slot. As you can see, I've got a standard compressor here. Usually when I'm working with chord sounds of this type, I like to over compress stuff. So I usually pull down the threshold and up the ratio really hard, so it gets really compressed. And then I raise the gain, and what you get is an extremely compressed sound that pierces through your mix. But with KORG, it's so easy to make sounds that already does that without having to over compress it. So in this case, I'm just using the compressor to hold it in check. Next, I've got a reverb here, and there's not too much to say about it, only that I love big wet reverbs, so I'm using one. But I'm not filtering off anything in the signal because the sound doesn't contain any unwanted material. I usually do filter off a bit of the low end because I don't want my reverbs to be boomy. And the tiny delay you could hear there actually comes from KORG itself, because it's got an effect section and I'm using the BPM delay in there. Now let's jump out and have a look at the haunting type lead thing. Now the lead consists of several gadgets. So I'm using 2 Kamata gadgets. This is another gadget I love incredibly much. And the second gadget I'm using is a Wolfsburg gadget. And this is the thing you can hear in the intro. I really like the sound of the Wolfsburg gadget, and the only thing I've done here actually is I'm using 2 oscillators, and then I've simply detuned them, added a chorus flanger effect and then an ensemble effect. Now the interesting stuff with this is what I've done in the insert effect slot, because I'm shaping the sound a lot with the equalizer. So let's enter the equalizer, and I'm gonna A-B this for you. As you can hear, a lot happens with the sound when I turn off the equalizer, so I'm filtering off quite a bit. Looking down here, we can see that I've set the frequency at 577 Hz, and then I've pulled it down 15 decibels, so I'm completely killing that part of the frequency spectrum. And that's why you can hear that boominess in the lead coming back when I turn off the equalizer. Now looking at the mid here, I've set the cue point to 9.3, so it's got a pretty sharp slope, and I've set the frequency knob to 300 Hz, and I know that this is below the 577 Hz we have here, but that's because there was still some material there around 300 Hz I just needed to get rid of. And then I've simply turned it down 3.4 decibels. Now looking at the top, I found this lead to be a bit too sharp for my taste, so I set the frequency around 11,674 Hz. I know that's a long number, think 11K, and then I've pulled it down minus 4.7 decibels. So I'm just shaving off a bit of the high frequency spectrum there. Right, if we jump back, we can see that I've got a compressor here. I did have this on from the beginning, but I've been A/B'ing this and I'm not quite sure if I'm gonna keep this. So we're not gonna care about this right now. Next we have a reverb, and as usual, I like my reverbs big and wet. So you can see I pulled up both on time and on size. Now, since I already did all my filtering with the equalizer, I haven't felt the need to filter off the incoming signal. Right, and that was the KORG Gadget. Now let's go back out of here, and the last two gadgets we're gonna go through are the KORG gadgets. These two were designed to work together with one another. So this KORG gadget is kind of shadowing this one. Right, so we're gonna start by having a listen to the filler KORG gadget. I'm gonna raise the volume a little bit so you can hear it better. Now, one cool thing about KORG is that you can draw in your own waveforms. So this is something I dotted in myself. Now you can find the synthesizer engine if you press on this button there, and the way I'm making the notes bend is by controlling the portamento. So you can see I've set the mode to mono and then I've turned up the time. So let's head into the insert effect slot, and as you can see, I've got the obligatory compressor right there and some dust over there. Not much to say about it other than I'm keeping the volume in check, and then I've also got a reverb there, and as usual it's big and wet. But for this one I've turned up the level quite a bit, and that's because I want this sound to feel a bit distant. The wetter the signal gets when you're adding a reverb to it, the more distant it will feel. So let's head back and have a look at the equalizer. I've done quite a bit with the equalizer, but it's hard to hear what's actually been done. My intentions were to remove any frequencies that was giving this sound a body. When I turn off the equalizer, the body comes back. Looking at the lows here, we can see that I've put the frequency knob at around 600 Hz and I've pulled it down 15 decibels, so I'm completely killing those frequencies. Well, there was still some body left in there, and so I had to rectify that with the mid settings. So if we look at the frequency knob here, I've put it at around 700 Hz and a pretty sharp Q shape. Pulling it down at minus 15 decibels, it kind of looks like this. Right, and that's pretty much what I've done with this little lead thing. And so we only have one gadget left to check, and it's the second KORG unit. Now I can't remember if I drew this shape myself or if I went in and chose one of the presets in the banks here. So let's head into the synth engine, and as you can see, I've pulled the portamento up quite a bit, and that's why I'm getting it to bend like this. Yeah, it sounds absolutely lovely. Right, so let's head to the insert effect slot. And at the beginning here, we can see that I've got an equalizer that is turned off. You see, initially I did try to filter this sound, but I ended up not using the equalizer. Just listen to what happens when I turn the equalizer on. At least to my ears, what I did with the equalizer didn't make the sound better, it made it sound worse. And so I decided to scrap that equalizer. Right, heading back, we can see that I've got that compressor in here, and this time I'm actually compressing it quite a bit. Now the ratio isn't turned up that high, but I have turned down the threshold, and that's because I want this sound to become more squashed. I want this sound to pierce through my mix. The sound itself has so much energy, so I didn't need to compensate with the gain knob. I've just simply regulated the volume of this KORG Gadget with the volume fader in the mixer here, and as you can see, I've got it pulled down because, as I said, this sound contains a lot of energy, so I had to pull down on it. It was basically louder than everything else in my mix. And so the last plugin in my effects chain is a reverb, and I do love big and wet reverbs, but I did make this reverb a little bit smaller, and it is is due to this lead having so much energy, so I just wanted a reverb that sounded more like a room than a stage or a hall. Right, and that's what I've done with the lead and chord section of this track. Okay, so the fourth and final episode of this series will be about the vocal material here inside Gadget. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching. All comments and ratings are very much appreciated. I've also got a Patreon page, so if you want to support creativity and good content here on YouTube, then why not sign up on Patreon? Now, if you don't want to do Patreon, then I've got a PayPal me link, so you can do a one-off donation if you'd rather do that. Now, if you don't want to do Patreon or PayPal, then you can always share my videos, press the thumbs up if you think that my videos deserve it, and if you subscribe, don't forget to click in that little bell thing, because that way you'll get notified every time I upload a new video. As usual, I wish you a very productive week. Now go finger all of your stuff and have a lot of fun doing it.
Right, listen up. We're going in hard and rough. No point in playing tough. We're going in hard and rough. Step back, this is my sound system. Step back, this is my sound system.